Welcome to Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. I'm Rob Wilson.
I am Tony the Quano.
So it's time to finish off the Back to the Future trilogy. We got Back to the Future Part 3. So, Tony, like I've said on this one, this was actually the only movie of the trilogy that my family owned when I was growing up. So This is the one that I've seen probably more than any of the others. And it's always been a fantastic movie. I've always loved it.
Yeah, no, I think I mentioned it. I remember at the time, because both of them were, released so close together, parents really enjoying this one a lot, and I liked it. It's the Old West, so to speak, and it's a lot of fun, and it comes at things, recycles some things, but definitely approaches it a little bit differently than the other two.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. It's the most different of the three, but at the same time, it has most of the same story beats to it. Except just instead of a diner, it's a saloon and stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty much still the same order of things, just tweaked a little bit.
Got a lot of the same characters. We just see more of their ancestors, so to speak, right? Whether it be Marty's family, the Stricklands, right? So yeah, it's done well. And I think overall, that's easy to get into doing something like the Old West and being super cheesy with it and not being, I think a lot of times when places do kind of like Western, so to speak, in a lighthearted way, it doesn't always come out as being super authentic, but I think they did a pretty good job overall. And it's just kind of cool to see the origin of Hill Valley.
Yeah. Definitely.
And it has some of my favorite little pieces of just small touches that they do. Because, we get to see, we talk about the people, we also see different places within the town throughout the entire arc. And obviously, the big centerpiece is always, the courthouse and the clock tower.
Yeah, this is where it's being
obviously
built.
Under construction throughout the movie. But I like that, the center part of the movie is the dedication of it. And you see the picture in the beginning of the movie. You see it taken and then see it at the end. But the picture with Marty, Doc, and then the clock. It's so central to who they are. And it's just a small aspect of it. But it's one of my favorite parts of the entire trilogy.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome. We get a little bit of each of the time periods, except, 2015. But we get a little bit of 55, a little bit of 85.
In the 50s.
And then most of it is in 1885.
And that's also where it's kind of different than the other ones, is that the first one is kind of bookended with 1985, right? The first 20, 25 minutes of the movie is, the present day. And then the big chunk of it is in 1955. But then you spend the last, 5 or 10 minutes back in 1985. And as we talked about last time, you really have the three separate parts, right? You have very briefly the return to 1985, kind of as the prologue. And then that first third is the future, the alternate 85 in the middle, and then 1955 again at the end. And before we get into 1955 again, there were two things I kind of thought about that I missed last time. I thought it's kind of cool about the alternate 1985. But Richard Nixon is still president.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right, he is.
And Biff helped him to be president again.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yep.
And they're still fighting the Vietnam War. So kind of little cues to things outside of Hill Valley, right? Because everything else within the movie is like all Hill Valley. But anyway, so it starts back in 1955, obviously, because as we saw at the end of part 2, the DeLorean, while it's hovering in the air, gets struck by lightning and spins out to 1885. And Marty's stuck in 1955. Yeah,
but he gets a letter from Doc explaining where he went, where he ended up. And it had instructions on how to repair the DeLorean because he had put it in a mine after landing in 1885. Doc had put the DeLorean in a mine. He had hidden it there. And with the note... I liked
how they give the little piece there within the note that Doc knows that area well enough that it should be undisturbed for those 70 years. But he sends it Western Union, which we'll see later in the movie. And the guy that delivers the telegram is the dad from Freaks and Geeks.
Yes.
Which had not come out yet, obviously. But he would go on to start Freaks and Geeks. Which, if you have not seen Freaks and Geeks, do yourself a favor, watch Freaks and Geeks.
It is a fantastic show.
The very short-lived series, but it's fantastic.
Yeah,
anyway.
It's a shame that it was only one season. And even that, then not even a full season. It was only, what?
Not even a full season. It's like 12 or 13
12,
episodes.
13 episodes back in the days when a full season of a show was 20 to 24.
And I think it might even been one of those ones where those unreleased episodes they threw onto the DVD set. So, but he has the instructions, detailed instructions. But obviously Marty has to go back and tell Doc again. I always kind of like that scene. It's at the end of 2, and I re-show it again at the beginning of 3. He's dancing in the street because it all worked, right? And he's a scientist. He's happy about it. And he sees Marty again 5 seconds later. And obviously he passes out because it doesn't make any sense.
Because he just sent him to the future. And he comes running around the corner.
Like, I'm back from the future. So it's a good start to the movie.
Yeah, it is. So in the letter, Doc leaves instructions on how to repair the time machine so that Marty can get back to 1985. He tells him to, not try to come back to 1885 to get Doc. Just let him live out the rest of his life in the past. Because he's happy. He's
a blacksmith.
He became a blacksmith. He loves what he does. And he's always wanted to live in the Old West. So he tells Marty to fix the DeLorean and get himself back to 1985 and live the rest of his life. And Marty's prepared to do that until outside the mine.
Until they recover the DeLorean.
Yeah, until they recover the DeLorean. And there's a cemetery outside the mine. And in that cemetery, Marty finds Doc's tombstone.
Was Copernicus found it?
Oh, yes, that's right.
Dog.
Yes, Copernicus
Marty
found
has
it.
to go get Copernicus.
Yes.
Which I think it's kind of a nice little touch. Like, does he read the name, or does he just kind of smell or sense Doc being down there? But it's not just that it's his grave, right? Because obviously, maybe you would find his grave and live to be 80 or 90 years old, whatever, right? But they find that, no, he dies like a week after he writes that letter because he's shot.
Yeah. He had been living in 1885 for a few months before he wrote the letter. But, yeah, the death date on his tombstone was about a week or so after he wrote the letter. So 1955, Doc and Marty decide that Marty shouldn't be going back to 1985. He needs to go back and keep Doc from being killed in 1885 because they learned that he was shot dead by Buford Mad Dog Tannen, shot in the back over a matter of $80.
Was referenced in Back to the Future Part 2 in a documentary on Biff's life.
About
Biff's Pleasure Palace.
About Biff's ancestors. And
it also mentions the name Clara, right? Which is, it's not mentioned in the letter at all.
Yes. The tombstone
says... specific about why he's happy.
Yes.
But there's no mention of a Clara.
The tombstone mentions his beloved Clara, but yeah.
And I like that within that, too. But, they find it. But then, as a good scientist or any researcher, they try to research more to find out about what might have happened, right? Because it's, they're going to need that information, and they want to know. They also want to make sure that it's the right Brown. And that's when we learned that Doc Brown is German.
Yes, because wasn't it Marty was asking if he might run into Doc's ancestors there?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And then Doc mentioned that his family came over to America from Germany later than that. It was the von Braun family. They changed
it after World War I, which was, the Germans had a lot of people blame them for the war, and so they changed the name. Brown, but it made sense.
Yep, it did. A lot of immigrants changed their names when they came to America.
Yeah, not just German. Some of them was just changed for them. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we also discover they find photos of the ceremony. But, it's kind of a cool dive into Hill Valley's history. I was trying to look this up more. I was just trying to think, how well did, sometimes people kind of create more backstories to these things. Things are not really officially canon, right? There's not a lot for Hill Valley, unfortunately, before 1885 and really between 1885 and 1955. It's established in 1850, right? And that's about it. So they just do that research to determine that he has to go back, get Doc, or at least avert whatever happens. Because, maybe Doc will stay, but at least avert.
Yes, they at least have to save Doc's life. And if Doc chooses to stay in 1885, then he chooses to stay in 1885. But Marty's got to...
they have what they need for it to get to 88 miles an hour and to be able to time circuits. They have Mr. Fusion still.
Yes, they do. They still have Mr. Fusion, and they strapped a tray of 1955 parts to the hood of the DeLorean to be able to fix what was wrong with the flux capacitor and the time circuits. But unfortunately, when it got struck by lightning at the end of Back to the Future 2, it fried the hover circuits, so the DeLorean would never fly again. But what if they took it back to 2015 and just had the guys that did the hover conversion fix it?
I didn't even think about that. They could have just fixed that again. It would have saved a few of the issues that come later in the movie.
It really would have. Because, I mean, it's a time machine. So Marty could have taken it to 2015, had him fix the flying, and then taken it back to 1885.
Yeah.
And that would have fixed pretty much everything that went wrong in the movie.
Yeah, then there wouldn't be a movie. It was just like, you just pick them up and then just fly off.
True.
And then Doc would have been like, I don't know no Clara. Who's this? Anyhow. But, they approach this in the right way, though. It's like, they realize they're going to go back to the past. Having a car randomly show up in the 1880s is going to attract some attention. So Doc finds a drive-in movie theater way on the outside of town.
And buys Marty some cowboy clothes.
I always like
that Doc is sure that the cowboys wore back in the 1800s.
And Marty's like, I don't think Clint Eastwood would wear this. Harking back to the scene from the middle of two, but he's right. I always thought it's funny that Doc would think that's what cowboys would wear. Especially considering that it's like his favorite period in time.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what's interesting about that? So when Marty walks out of the movie theater after having changed into his cowboy getup, if you look at the movie posters that are up on the wall, they're of Clint Eastwood's early movies before he started doing the Westerns.
I didn't catch any of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. I always, I like this, the other little pieces I like about the movies as well, because Doc's like, who's Clint Eastwood? Like, 1955, no one would have known Clint Eastwood, right?
Clint Eastwood was still in his early days of acting.
Back to the Future Part 1, when he asked him who's president, he said Ronald Reagan. He's like, Ronald Reagan, the actor?
Yeah.
Because Ronald Reagan, big star at that time, and he was actually, when they go into the movie theaters in downtown Hill Valley in 1955.
Yeah, it's a Ronald Reagan movie.
Showing Ronald Reagan movie, right? So he's like, just going to drive straight out there, and the movie screen has that like cowboy and Indian image. Marty's not thinking fourth dimensionally.
Nope, because he says there's not enough road here. If I get up to 88 miles an hour, I'm going to run into those Indians. And then Doc reminds him he's not thinking fourth dimensionally. Though,
when you look at like the setting and all of that, right? Obviously it's a set that but it looks like the Utah desert. It doesn't look like any place that should be close to Hill Valley. So, I would say I always had a problem with that. Like, the more recently, I'm like, okay. It's kind of funny because, like, he hits 88 and he drives into a bunch of Indians. Which, if they made this movie today, I don't know if they would have gone that route.
Well, I guess they never really specify where in California Hill Valley is.
Right. It's true.
I mean, you kind of assume that it's Southern California, but it's not necessarily.
I guess I think about all the farms, or, I think about, or maybe not the farms, but like the Old Man Peabody, and trying to breed his trees and seeing some of the land out there, in 1955.
I mean, it could be a border town.
Could be, yeah. So
it could be on the border with Nevada or something, and then that could explain how not too far out of town it's that kind of desert. But,
so he gets back to 1885, and sure enough, there's all the Indians.
Yep. Only this time it's real Indians.
Right.
It's not. They're not painted on a wall. It's real ones that are riding toward him on horses.
He ends up driving the car to a little cave.
Yep, puts it in a little cave. All the Indians they jump over the cave. When they're ride past him, he climbs out, pops his head up, and the cavalry's coming, chasing the Indians away.
Runs off and falls down a hill through a fence.
No, not yet. No, first he's got he goes in there, notices there's an arrow sticking out of the DeLorean.
That's right. There's the bear. It's right.
And looks down and sees that there's a hole in the gas tank, and all the gas is the fuel line is
Indian shot an arrow and went through the fuel line.
Yeah, so the fuel line is
Which
leaking,
is not good,
so all the gas is spilling out all over the ground. And on top of that, there's a bear in the cave. So Marty's running out in his Nike tennis shoes, carrying his red boots
Which, at least he had those. It distracted the bear enough.
So he throws his boots on the ground behind him, and the bear goes up there, starts sniffing him. Marty keeps running, trips, falls down a hill, right through a fence, knocks himself out.
Which also is kind of weird, because like that farm seems very close to where they were, where the cave was. He didn't, he ran, but not like he ran for like miles.
Yeah. Unless he just has...
Did the cowboys and the cavalry just like run through the farm?
They might have. They might have.
Anyway, but
maybe he has incredible stamina and he ran like 12 miles.
But he wakes up, and again, here's what he thinks is his mom's voice. It's Leah Thompson.
The same scene that's in every one of the movies. One of those mainstays in there. He wakes up to his mom's voice, but it's not his mom. This time, it's not his mom.
What, his great grandmother or great great grandmother?
It's his great great grandmother.
Great, yeah, because his great grandfather is a baby.
Yes, it's his great great grandmother, Maggie McFly.
It's the McFly farm.
Yes, it is the McFly farm, and she is played by Leah Thompson. Ireland. But then her husband Seamus McFly comes in, played by Michael J. Fox. So he
did a good job.
He's doing double duty on this one too, just like he was in the last movie. Well, in the last movie, he was doing like quadruple duty.
At least last movie, he plays his older self, his current self, his daughter,
and his son.
I don't get it. Cause Elizabeth Shue could have done triple duty, right?
Yep, she could have.
Or even Leah Thompson. Leah Thompson could have gotten some makeup in the movie also.
Yeah,
because she's in the movie. She could. She's older than Lorraine, but they're at the McFly farm, and we find out that they're kind of recent immigrants from Ireland.
And when they ask Marty his name, or when Maggie asks him his name, rather than saying his name's Marty McFly, he says it's Clint Eastwood. Because he can't let it slip that he's a time traveler and that he's their great-great-grandson.
Yes.
So he says he's Clint Eastwood. So the rest of the movie, the two of them call him Mr. Eastwood.
I really do like the interaction between like the three of them.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a good relationship. And I think even like Seamus, he feels like, it's weird, he feels like there's some connection that he senses about it, right?
Yeah. And he's so concerned.
So he tells Maggie, like, we have to help him out.
Yeah, he's so concerned that Marty doesn't have a hat.
That's right.
He is fine with this stranger in their house. He wants to help him. He feels a connection to him, but he doesn't understand why he doesn't have a hat.
I love his hats too. The little bowler type.
Yep.
He's not wearing a Stetson. No.
Nope.
He's
wearing that European bowler type hat. So he gives Marty a hat, a bowler hat.
Gives him some more clothes that aren't pink.
No, he's still wearing his pink clothes.
He does wear. That's right.
Yes, he wears the pink clothes. That's right. And the red pants. The pink shirt, red pants.
Gonna redress him later.
And he's still wearing his Nikes.
Yep.
And Seamus gives him a bowler hat. Marty makes his way to Hill Valley. Actually, no. Before that, he meets his great grandpa, the baby.
Yeah, sees a baby and he pees on him.
He picks him up and Seamus hands him to him because he needs to go. He needs to step away. And
his wife's not happy with him.
Yes, wife's not happy with him. Doesn't know why he's being so nice to this stranger. Then Marty's great grandpa pees on him. While in the middle of Marty standing there in awe that he's holding his great grandpa as a baby, the first McFly born in the United States. Mm-hmm. Then he pees on him.
But it's such a good scene because, obviously that would be George's dad, right?
Well, George's grandpa.
George's grandfather. Sorry, yes. And we don't know much about him or George's father, right? But George is kind of a pushover. He's a wimp, and Marty kind of swings in the other way and gets too rash and hot-headed about things. So he doesn't want people to think he's a wimp, as he sees his dad being such a wimp. But Seamus is kind of a really strong, wise type of character.
Yeah, he really is.
And he doesn't have a lot of scenes in the movie, but no, he does a good job. He stands up, for why he believes that they need to take care of Marty. He usually said, "You know what, Maggie, you're right."
But I mean, he doesn't let him sleep in the house. He lets him sleep in the barn. So he gives in to Maggie a little
advice
bit.
at times. Yeah. So anyway, he meets his great grandfather. Then next day he's in Hill Valley and he goes into the saloon.
Walking through the street, steps in some horse crap because there's horses because it's the Old West.
It's the Old West. It's the Western Union wagon.
Yeah.
Wells Fargo. I actually think it was Wells Fargo.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
But yeah, steps in crap.
But yeah, he just
walks into the saloon,
jumps back, and gets all his nice shiny white Nikes and horse crap. But then, he goes in the saloon. He's trying to find Doc. Yep,
but the bartender, he tells him he needs to order something, so he orders a water, gets laughed at.
There's always a scene about him trying to order something.
Yep. And the bartender says, we don't serve water here. We serve whiskey. So he pours him a shot of whiskey.
Steaming.
Yep, it's steaming. When a couple drops fall out of the glass and hit the bar top, and it's like acid. It sizzles.
And there's that because of course he can't be in an establishment without
you can't be in a dining establishment without somebody in Biff's family coming in.
And of course he thinks he's McFly because
McFly, I thought I told you never to come in here. Marty turns around and Buford, Mad Dog Tannen is standing there, and he's surprised that it's not Seamus because he saw the hat. And he thought,
how does Mad Dog know Seamus anyway? Like, some of the other ones, like, Biff and George obviously go to school.
Yeah, they never explained how they know each other.
Grandfather. It doesn't seem like Seamus would be the type that would run into him that often.
I mean, it's not a big town.
And
Seamus obviously doesn't live too far outside of town. And, I'm sure he goes in there all the time.
He doesn't want to see that hat in the saloon. Like, he thinks the hat looks ridiculous and doesn't want to be bothered by that hat. That would be perfectly in line with Mad Dog.
Yeah, it would be. But yeah, I would imagine that they just, over time, run into each other in town, and Mad Dog, being a Tannen, doesn't like the McFlys.
Yeah, right. But it just, it follows kind of the same pattern of a lot of the encounters within the establishments. Funny, because the first movie, the first encounter of Biff in the diner does not lead to the chase. Chase is a different scene.
Yeah, it's a different diner scene.
But in both 2 and 3, it's that first diner scene or saloon scene.
Yeah.
That leads to the chase. And the chase is more abbreviated in this one. But it's important to know, we would say Mad Dog. Marty doesn't know yet that he does not like the name Mad Dog.
Yeah, so when Marty calls him Mad Dog, Buford gets mad. And, he does the classic Western move of making somebody dance. Pulls out his 6-shooter, starts shooting at Marty's feet.
So Marty does the moonwalk.
And Marty starts moonwalking. Starts moonwalking in his knee Ks. Because one of Buford's men earlier looked at his shoes like, what's knee K? Yeah, so Marty's moonwalking, does the Michael Jackson spin move, and jumps down right on top of a floorboard that's bent up. And the other end of that floorboard is sitting right underneath a spittoon. Launches the spittoon, catapults it right into Buford's arms. Just covers him in tobacco spit.
Thankfully, because he made him dance, he was out of bullets.
Yep.
Which is what leads to the chase.
Yes. So once they find out that Buford's out of bullets, because he can't shoot Marty, he tries, but he can't because he doesn't have bullets. Marty runs, and Mad Dog and his posse chase him.
But it's the 1880s, and he has no skateboard type thing to ride around on, and they are on horses.
Yes, they're on horses, and he's just running, and they have lassos. So they lasso Marty, drag him behind the horse, string him up at the courthouse. So he's hanging. And interesting thing here during that scene, so they had the rope around Marty, and while they were filming it, the rope slipped from where it was supposed to be, and it was actually choking Michael J. Fox. Like, he was actually hanging.
You could tell, like, he's like, shit.
Yeah. Nobody noticed it. They all thought he was just acting. And, it wasn't for a little while that he's sitting there, hanging there, actually, like, being strangled by the rope, that somebody noticed that he was actually, like, choking. Yeah, so don't try your own stunts at home, kids, because even with even in professional productions, things can go wrong.
David Carradine found out about that.
Yes, he did. But that's all we're going to say about that. So,
I'm sorry. So he's up there. He's strangling. Then you see these legs walk up and this big ass rifle.
Yep, this big rifle with a huge scope on it. And the rifle fires. The bullet goes right through the rope and cuts Marty free. Then we see who's behind the rifle.
It's Doc. And we begin to discover why Doc's about to die.
Yep.
Or seemingly about to die.
Yep. Because he shooed Mad Dog's horse. And the horse threw the shoe. And so
Biff killed the horse.
So Doc tells Biff to bring the horse back and he'll re-shoe him, but Mad Dog already shot that horse. So he sees that Doc owes him $5 for the shoe. And $75 for the horse, which is the $80 that Doc had been murdered over, the event that Marty is trying to stop.
Yeah. Which is kind of, the strange thing, because they kind of have like this quasi-nice reunion at first, which for Marty is just a day.
Yeah, but for Doc, it's been months.
Doc, it's been like 9 months. He just saved his life, and he's like, I told you not to come back here. And of course, he's happy to see him, but then it's like, yeah, well, I got to tell you why I came back. You're going to die. This is what happened.
And for some reason, Doc is completely okay with Marty telling him that he's going to die this time.
That's right.
Because in the first movie, he was trying to tell 1955 Doc that he was going to get killed by the Libyans in 1985. And Doc didn't want to hear it. But in this movie, Doc is completely fine with Marty telling him that Mad Dog's going to kill him.
Yep. But, they go to his shop, and Marty reveals, as we said earlier, the important thing, that the gas line got shot by an arrow.
I don't know, did the gas line actually get shot by an arrow, or did it just, the rough terrain just tear it out? Because the arrow was sticking in the back of the DeLorean, but it wasn't actually anywhere near the fuel lines.
You're right. Yeah, no, it's probably just the terrain. Probably going down over that hill.
Yeah.
When he was getting away from the, trying to, evade the Indians that did it. So, but obviously it's a dilemma, because you can't just get gasoline for the car.
No, there's not a gas station in Hill Valley yet.
They have to devise a plan of how are they going to get it to go 88 miles an hour. And that's when, I guess the mayor, right? He comes in and he tells them about a new school teacher that's coming into town on the train, right?
Is that the mayor?
That's what I want to know. Did they say who he is? So it wasn't it wasn't the marshal, but, and he says the name is Clara, so they begin to understand the name Clara.
Right? Yeah. But there's actually one scene early on in there when they're talking, you can see Clara in the background getting off the train.
That's right. But they go through a series of ideas about how to get it to, and I guess on a side note, he also tells it, about the Clara. Because we don't know who Clara is yet, right?
Yeah, so here's the thing, though.
And Doc thinks it's silly that...
Yeah, so the reason why Clara was mentioned on the tombstone, but there was no Clara before Doc went back to the past, is because Doc had agreed to meet her at the train station, to pick her up from the train station. Then Marty showed up, and so Doc wasn't there to pick up Clara.
Correct.
So if Marty hadn't gone back there, Doc would have, met Clara at the train station, and then their story would have progressed from there. But since Marty went back, Doc missed the meeting with Clara, so she had to go and get a wagon of her own.
Which is interesting, because prior to when Doc didn't live in 1885, him just going to 1885 itself changes part of that history.
Yeah.
Because as we'll find out later, Claire was supposed to die.
Yep, because, anyway, Doc and Marty are out. They see a wagon. They see horses that were spooked by a snake or something, and they're running wild. They're going crazy. And there's this woman who's in the wagon that they're pulling, and they're running straight toward Clayton Ravine.
And at the time, they're just getting it like, let's save this woman.
Yeah. So Marty
Which is
and Doc,
perfectly natural response.
They spring into action. They go and they save the woman off the wagon. The horses go running over the cliff into the ravine, into Shonash Ravine, is what it's called then. But, Marty mentions Clayton Ravine, and
There's a school teacher.
There's a school teacher who
and all the kids in
ran
school
off the
had
into
fantasies
the
about certain teachers falling into the ravine.
Yep. And so the ravine was renamed Clayton Ravine after Clara Clayton, the school teacher who fell into the ravine.
Yep.
But Doc and Marty saved her. So
Yep.
It's still called Shonash Ravine at this point in time.
And it would have remained that even if Marty had not gone back. Because at that point, Doc is now in 1885, and Marty wouldn't have been there to interfere with that. He would have picked her up and spent that week together.
Yeah.
But Marty does come back, and they had to figure out how to get him back to 1885. And they keep going through ideas, and they settle on an idea like, how don't we push the DeLorean? Because there's trains all over the place, right?
And, in 1885, a train is about the only thing that has a chance of going 88 miles per hour.
Right. And so that's why they're kind of out near the train station, and they're asking the engineer about, could they get to 88? And he said, well, you had to have a hot enough fire, and you can't really be pulling the rest of the train, because obviously that's going to drag it down. So they figure, okay, this has got to be the way, and that's when, riding back to town, when they hear her screaming, because they're busy trying to figure out how to get to 88. So now you have that set up, that met Clara, and they have plan.
And, of course,
now.
Doc and Clara love at first sight.
Of course, which Doc said would never happen.
Yeah. Doc was not a believer in love at first sight. But it is a pretty common movie trope that the person who doesn't believe in love at first sight is the one that falls in love at first sight.
Marty has to pull him back away after, they drop her off at the schoolhouse. And what happens from that then? Because is the town scene, I think?
Yeah, so Doc and Marty are back at Doc's blacksmith shop. They are continuing to plan their...
you're right. She brings him...
Yeah, she brings him the telescope.
That's right.
So they're at the blacksmith shop, going over the model.
There's a model this time. There wasn't a model in part 2.
No, there was a model in part 1, and there's a model in part 3. And once again, Doc starts apologizing, and Marty stops him. He's like, I know, it's not to scale. But right in the middle of them testing out their theory on how to get the train up to 88 miles per hour to push the DeLorean, then Clara shows up. And so they have to cover everything up. They have to cover up the DeLorean with a blanket, and Clara brings Doc her telescope that was damaged when the wagon was going crazy. So Doc tells her that he'll fix it. And
they looked through it together also.
Yes, they looked through it together.
Where it's broken. And now he's telescoping.
Yep. In more ways than one. But yeah, so...
Yeah, and he's a nerd. He gets into that science geeky stuff.
Yeah, because they hold the telescope one way and it's all fuzzy. Then they turn it the other way and everything is clear. So it sounds just like a regular telescope that you change the focus on. So, so Doc tells her that he'll fix it, and she asks him if he's going to the town festival.
Yeah, because they're going to inaugurate the clock tower.
Yes,
that's the entire idea. It's like they have the courthouse and building the clock, and they're going to actually start the clock.
Yep, and so they're having this big festival that night. And Doc says that he will deliver the telescope to her at the festival. And
they're there, and it's kind of a typical town festival. I like I like the entire setup of this. Like
ZZ Top's playing.
Feels. They couldn't get Huey Lewis in the new.
Nope, but they got ZZ Top. ZZ Top's playing at the festival.
But, it feels like, they got the music and they have games. They have Smith & Wesson is there. And they can shoot little metal ducks.
Colt's there, not Smith & Wesson.
Is it Colt?
Yeah, it's Colt. Because the guy is so proud of his Colt Peacemaker.
That's right. But, yeah, it seems like the entire town is there. They got the pictures. We mentioned that's one of the big things that happens that Marty and Doc get their picture with the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which is so appropriate. Again, I just love that little touch.
Yeah, it was great.
And then, he sees a Frisbee.
Yeah, he's going to get a piece of pie.
A pie dish.
Sees the pie dish made by Frisbee Pies. He's like, hey, Frisbee, far out. And he's talking to Seamus and Maggie because they're there too. Yep. And he puts the pie plate back down on the table and walks away. And Maggie, it was right there in front of him.
And then we cut into that.
First off, Marty goes over to the Colt shooting gallery, and he's sort of just looking around
and shoot.
And the guy who runs it, he comes out, he grabs him, puts a Colt Peacemaker in his hand, and he's telling him how great the gun is and how it's the brand new gun from Colt, and tries to get him to shoot, but Marty won't.
There's a line in there that he says that even a baby could shoot this.
Yes. And
then you remember Back to Future Part 2 is like, it was like, it's a toy.
Yep, it's a baby's toy. Yep. Yep. But
you gotta use your hands. But he's distracted because he sees Doc and Clara really hitting it off.
Pulls the trigger, hits the top of the shooting gallery, and then, the guy's about to take the gun away from him, and Marty's like, I got this. And he hits every target real quick without trying.
And they're impressed.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive, even at that time. Like, obviously, accuracy was getting better on guns. But
yeah.
So, that's always a funny little scene. Then you switch from that, and obviously now Mad Dog's coming in.
Yeah, Mad Dog's coming in, gets stopped by Marshall Strickland. Or no, gets stopped by the deputy outside, tells him to leave his guns.
Their firearms, right?
Yep, everybody's turning their firearms. Mad Dog doesn't want to do it.
Which I get, in the Old West, makes a lot of sense, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Characters like Mad Dog are just going to shoot people for no reason.
Yep. So Mad Dog and his people don't want to do it. Then Strickland shows up behind him with a shotgun to his back with his son on the horse right next to him.
Which is, they didn't really establish, is the son...
The son, I would imagine, would be...
father or Strickland's grandfather?
Well, Strickland's kind of old in 85 because he was an adult in 55.
But he's still the principal of the school in 1980.
Yeah, so I would imagine that would be that Marshall Strickland would probably be Strickland's grandpa.
That's kind of what I think. Yeah, okay.
Which would mean that Marshall Strickland's son would be Principal Strickland's dad.
Yeah, I can run with that.
So Strickland gets Mad Dog and his buddies to give up their guns so that they can go into the party. And that's when Marshall Strickland looks at his son and he's like, see that, son? That's the one word you need to remember. Discipline. And it sounds like, I will, Pa.
I will. I love that kid. I will, Pa.
But, of course, Marshall Strickland has long flowing hair.
Yeah. Everyone else has
He's got Wild Bill Hickok hair.
What happened in that bloodline?
But, every Strickland we've seen before has been completely cue ball bald.
Marty's like, when he goes back to 1955, he's like, didn't he ever have hair?
Yeah, that's right. He does comment on that, doesn't he? In the first movie. But
so Mad Dog's in the party, then you see Doc and Claire, they're dancing, and then he sneaks up on them, his little derringer, and he sticks in his back.
Well, did Mad Dog try to cut in first on the dancing before the derringer?
Oh, that's right. He does try to cut in.
Or was the derringer how he introduces himself to Doc how he lets Doc know that he's there?
Yeah, no, that's how I remember him trying to dance with her too.
Yeah, because Doc's trying to keep him from dancing with her, and Clara's like, oh, just let him do it. It'll be easier if you just let him dance with me.
That's right. Yep.
So Mad Dog grabs Clara, and dances all wild with her.
Doc's thinking that this is too early. I'm supposed to die a few days from now.
Yeah.
Of course, he's not thinking this is the 1880s where it might take you days to die from a gunshot wound.
Yeah.
Which is what the point that Mad Dog makes. The last guy I killed took 3 days to die.
Yep. And it was 3 days from then that Doc was supposed to be killed.
Yep.
So Doc breaks up the dancing, and Mad Dog gets mad and points the derringer at him. Meanwhile, Marty is over eating some pie by the frisbee plate.
Must have been a damn good pie.
Yeah. Grabs the frisbee pie plate, throws it just like a frisbee, and hits Mad Dog's hand just as he's pulling the trigger, causing him to miss Doc.
Shoots all. And of course, Mad Dog's very angry about this.
Yes. But because he brought a gun there, he gets drug away by the marshal and the deputy.
Right. But before that, he challenges Marty.
Yes, that's right. Before that, he challenges Marty.
A duel. Because Marty's going to leave, and As always, he's about to leave, and Doc calls him Yellow.
Yep, which was the 1800s version of chicken.
And of course, no one calls Marty Yellow.
So he agrees to the duel. And
it's going to be Monday morning.
Yep, Monday morning. They go back and forth on the time, on what time it's going to be.
Before or after breakfast.
Yes, before or after breakfast. Mad Dog likes to do his killing before breakfast. Marty likes to do his killing after breakfast. So they decide on 8 a.m.
Mad Dog would go, oh, and Seamus comes up to Marty and is like, you can't let people do that to you, right?
Yep.
But it's kind of funny because, obviously we don't see from Marty, obviously he has kind of like this timeline in his head. His dad not giving him advice like that, right?
Yep.
His dad just being a pushover because he didn't really get to grow up with the timeline of his dad actually being someone that kind of stood up to bullies.
Yeah.
But not also being, he gives him really fatherly advice. Tells him about his brother, Martin McFly.
His brother,
right?
Martin McFly. His brother, Martin.
He was killed in a mark rifle with a Bowie knife, which obviously that's, I guess, how Marty got his name. Somehow the name stayed within the family.
Now, did Marty get his name from Seamus's brother, or did he get his name from Marty in 1955?
Right, because Marty kind of like that.
Maybe originally it was because of Seamus's brother, but then in the alternate timeline that was created after Marty went back to 1955,
right,
then maybe
it is an alternate timeline.
It was changed now. But yeah, so then the Colt salesman comes up and gives Marty a free Colt Peacemaker worth $12. If you could get a Colt Peacemaker today for $12, I'd have a lot of them.
Of course, everyone else is coming up to him good luck. But it's set up now because now obviously Doc's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this, right? And Marty again is just not thinking fourth dimensionally enough.
Yep.
About how things can be different, and
well, no, it's Doc. It's Doc that's thinking fourth dimension. That's not thinking fourth dimensionally this time because he asked him why he set it for that time, and Marty reminds Doc that 8 a.m. on Monday morning we're going to be traveling back to the future because the train leaves at 8, so they got to be there for the train.
But things will happen, and then they looked at the photo, and the gravestone is still there, but
now the name's gone. It just says, "Here lies."
Okay, what name is going to go on there?
Mm-hmm. Right? The death date is still there, but the name is gone. So then it's whose name is going to be on the tombstone. So then the next day, Marty wakes up. Doc's nowhere to be found.
Well, that's not because they're still talking about.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The next day is when they talk about the stone. Doc's talking with him about this is the next day. When the Doc is trying to talk to him about things, and he says you can't get angry every time that someone pushes you. And he almost let slip about the Rolls Royce hitting him, which is alluded to in Back to the Future Part 2.
Yeah, but that was the same night. That wasn't the next day that he was having that conversation with him. I don't think. Wasn't it at the fair that they were having that conversation?
It was the next day because there's several days in between.
Because that night Doc took Clara home and didn't get back until morning.
They still have the scene where they spend the night together. That's right. Yeah, you're right.
It was that night.
Yeah. And he comes back home and he's floating in the sky about things.
Yeah, he walks back. He's walking through the streets of Hill Valley, sniffing the flower that she gave him, the little flower brooch that she gave him. But before that, though, Marty wakes up at Doc's blacksmith shop. Doc's nowhere to be found because he stayed with Clara for the night, and he gets up, has his little. He has a Clint Eastwood moment, but also he has a
De
Niro moment. So gets up, puts his gun belt on, stands in front of the mirror, does the whole "you looking at me"? Well, you must be looking at me because there's no one else here.
It's when Doc comes back from at that point. Almost tells him about the Rolls Royce accident.
Because then after the whole "you looking at me" part. And then he goes right into Clint Eastwood with "Go ahead, punk, make my day." And so Marty then
Doc,
gets dressed up, goes walking around town, and then sees Doc walking down the street, sniffing the flower, and he goes up and talks to him. I think that might be where that conversation happens.
Yeah, because then he tells Marty, this is what the words are: "Marty, we all got to do things that affect the course of our lives. You got to do what you got to do, and I got to do what I got to do." And obviously, he's conflicted because he's falling in love. So Claire had touched him that night. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, she at least gave him her flower.
Okay. Where's your O'Keefe? But so they get to that night, and Doc's like, you know what? I'm going to stay in 1885 because he's in love. But Marty talks him out of it, right? And yet then Marty thinks the idea that, like, oh, Claire could come with us, and Doc rejects that.
Because Doc's always been on Marty about doing things that could change the course of the future, and so he can't let himself do the same thing that he's been warning Marty about the whole time.
And he finally decides, yeah, I know, Marty's right. We need to go back. Like, I don't belong in this time period. Goes to Claire's house, schoolhouse, and tells her that he's from the future.
Tells her the truth. Tells her that he's from the future. Oh, but they had connected over the works of Jules Verne.
Yes.
Before. That was something that we left out before. They both love the works of Jules Verne. And so Clara thinks that Doc was just trying to get in her pants, wowing her with his love of Jules Verne because he knows that she loves Jules Verne. And, getting under her blouse. So she thinks that he's lying to her because, I mean, really, if you're in 1885 and somebody comes up to you and tells you that they're a time traveler, and they're from 100 years in the future, are you going to believe him right away?
Probably not.
So she very understandably doesn't believe him. So she gets mad, she breaks up with him, and he leaves the flower on her windowsill and then goes to the saloon to drink his sorrows away.
He just sits there with a shot of whiskey for hours.
Yep. He has a conversation with the people, talks about the future and talks about planes and cars and all this stuff. And one of the guys is asking about, so we're not going to have to walk everywhere. We're not going to have to run. And he's like, oh, yeah, you'll still run. People will still run, but it'll be more for recreation. And then you have the cowboy, run for fun. The guy that did the voice of Wiley Burp in American Tail 5 Goes West. And
good movie, by the way.
Oh yeah, great movie.
Terrific kids movie.
Yes, it is. That's another one of those ones that I watched all the time when I was a kid. But
Marty, he wakes up, Doc's not there, and he finds him in the saloon.
Yep.
Marty kind of thinks he's drunk, and they tell him no, he hasn't touched a sip.
Yeah, because he's sort of just zoned out. But actually, before Marty got there, when he was still talking to the people the night before, the guy comes walking up to him who was peddling barbed wire. Which is actually he's playing a real life person. That character is the real life inventor of barbed wire.
Okay.
I forget his name. I forget the name of the guy that invented barbed wire, but I don't have it. But that character, that was that guy. I think in the credits he's got the same name as the barbed wire guy. But yeah.
The other thing that happens when he first gets in there too and orders the drink, the bartender's like, "Are you sure?
Yeah.
Do you remember the 4th of July?"
Yep. Yep. But of course, we don't know about the 4th of July. We just have that reference to it, which apparently something crazy happened on the 4th of July last time Doc drank. But yeah, so the barbed wire guy tries to comfort him a little bit. A nice stranger. Probably just trying to get some barbed wire sales from Doc.
Which wouldn't do him a lot of good. He's got a blacksmith shop in the center of town. He doesn't have a lot of fence.
He could easily whip up his own barbed wire, too.
He should talk with Seamus.
He built a refrigerator in 1885.
Yes,
to make a single ice cube. A giant Rube Goldberg machine refrigerator. But
so Marty shows up, and he's too late to stop Doc from taking that drink of whiskey.
Well, no. First, actually, no. He's not. They're talking, and he gets Doc's attention, and they agree that they're going to go.
That's right. You're right.
They're going to go to the train station, and Doc decides, you know what, we're going to celebrate with the shot, and he takes the shot, and then passes out.
Of course, the bartender has an elixir that can wake him up.
He calls it wake up juice. So
it takes a while to kick in, obviously.
But yeah, and that was his first drink too. That was the only drink that Doc had.
One shot.
So the bartender makes some wake up juice. They stick a funnel in Doc's mouth and pour it down his throat.
And then they wait.
Yeah, Doc springs up, runs out to the horse trough, dunks his head in there, and then passes out again.
That's right. I forgot about that part.
Yep.
And that's when they wait.
And then they bring him back
And
inside.
while they're waiting, obviously, Mad Dog comes.
Mad Dog comes because they have a duel that day. He's standing out in the street yelling for Eastwood to come out.
People in the saloon are saying that gotta come out. Because they thought it's Yella, a coward. One guy says, the name Clint Eastwood, we laughed at forever, right?
Everybody will know that Clint Eastwood's the biggest yellow belly in all the West.
There you go. You got it. And Marty's just thinking about it, and he's like, he's an asshole. Finally, just kind of says it about Biff, Griff, any Mad Dog assholes. But there's still the problem because he looks at the photo, and now Clint Eastwood's name is on the gravestone.
Yep. So Doc wakes up. They escape out the back of the saloon, but one of Mad Dog's men sees them in the alley, starts shooting at him. So Marty sort of dives into the building next door, runs into a stove, knocks the door off of the wood-burning stove, and Doc gets taken over to Mad Dog, who decides that if Clint Eastwood's not going to come out for their duel, somebody's getting shot today. And so he's about to shoot Doc. Then Marty comes walking out with his poncho, looking very Clint Eastwood-esque from Fistful of Dollars. Got his poncho, got his cowboy hat, got his boots.
Very classic Western setup duel now.
And so they're there.
Seamus is there.
Yeah, Seamus is there.
To see what happens.
Because he just had a feeling that he should be there that day. Like his future depended on it. So in classic Western fashion, they're standing so many paces from each other. Their fingers are twitching down by their guns, waiting to hear draw. Buford yells draw. I don't know why one of them was supposed to be saying draw, because that's kind of unfair.
That's not how it would work.
It would be, a third party saying draw so that everybody has an equal chance. But Mad Dog says draw. He draws, shoots Marty in the chest.
And Marty
just falls down to the ground.
Well, before that, Marty...
That's right. He undoes his belt and drops the... Yeah, Marty undoes the belt, drops the gun on the ground.
And Griff shoots him anyway, which would be a violation.
Yeah, Mad Dog says draw, Marty says no! And catches Mad Dog off guard. And then Marty takes his belt off, drops it on the ground.
And Griff shoots him anyway.
And he's like, let's settle this like men. And Mad Dog pulls his gun out, shoots Marty in the chest. Marty drops onto his back and lays there, seemingly dead. Meanwhile, Doc is shocked because he thinks that Marty's dead. Mad Dog walks up to him to check, make sure that he's dead. And Marty kicks his foot up off the ground, kicks across Mad Dog's face, knocks him back, climbs up, shows that he pulled the Clint Eastwood trick of having a bulletproof vest by using the door from that stove. He tied a rope around it, hung it around his neck so it would cover up his chest.
Well, doesn't Mad Dog punches him in the chest?
That's right. Mad Dog punches him in the chest, and then he reveals it, and then he takes it off and hits Mad Dog across the face with it.
Yeah.
Knocks him out. Right he falls back into the gravestones, breaks the one,
back into them,
breaks the gravestone that was in the picture,
gets back up,
gets back up, again, gets hit again, falls right into a manure cart. Because a tannin has to be covered in manure. You can't have a Back to the Future movie without a tannin covered in crap. So,
and then the marshal comes up.
And it's the same manure company, too.
It is.
Painted on the side of the cart. It's the same name.
Good family business.
Yep.
We're full of...
Good old family of shit farmers.
They've done well in the last several generations. And now it's...
Yep. Just like the Statler car dealership and the Statler horses and then Statler Studebaker and then Statler Toyota.
Keeping up with the times.
Yep. But, so...
Then the marshal comes up and arrests him.
No, the marshal doesn't come up. The deputy comes up and arrests him.
Deputy, that's right.
Do you know why the marshal's not there?
Why not?
Because there was a deleted scene where the night before, Mad Dog and his gang had
I remember this
run afoul of the marshal, and they killed him.
Yep.
They killed the marshal.
I remember that now.
And so that's why it was the deputy that came and arrested them the next day, and not the marshal.
Which, I get deleting that because that's a little dark. Because it's kind of
it's a little dark, and it's a filler scene. It's not important to the plot. It's just, I could totally see them cutting it for time.
We've already established he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we don't need to see Strickland's Batman scene.
No,
we don't need to see Strickland's Batman origin scene.
But no, I mean, weird. It's like the only like death in the movies. Maybe the Libyans.
Yeah, maybe the Libyans, but I don't know. They kind of just ran through a photo kiosk.
I mean, yeah.
They just ran their VW van into a photo kiosk, and that was about it.
I mean, he almost had Doc die in the first one because of that. But anyway, well, I want to know. This is the thing that gets me though. I mean, how things change, and maybe we don't actually see it. And we'll get into 1985 just a few minutes. But they arrest Mad Dog, and they say why they're arresting him. It's for a bank robbery, which in 1885 means you're going to hang.
Yep.
So does he have kids yet or not?
That is a very good question. Does he have little mad pups? Little mad pups at home?
Actually, no, we do get somewhat of an answer. This is why I'm actually asking it, because we do see something in 1985, excuse me. But yeah, in 1985, if you robbed a bank, you dead.
Yep.
They get you. So, but yeah, so Mad Dog's arrested. Now they have to race off to hijack the train so they can push the DeLorean 88 miles an hour.
Yep. But the train's already left the station because they weren't expecting to have to go through the duel. The train left at 8 o'clock.
Yes. They were supposed to leave
early. But they get a little bit of a break in there because Clara is on that train leaving town.
Right. And there were people on that train that were at the saloon talking about this guy, talking about the future.
Barbed Wire Man.
Being all sad.
Barbed Wire Man is talking about this guy that he met. The saddest man that he's ever met at the saloon.
Puppy dog guy.
Talking about this woman who stole his heart. This woman that he was so in love with. And he's trying to remember her name. He's like, what was it? Sarah Clara? And that's when Clara's ears perk up and she turns around and she's like, did he have silvery white hair and big brown puppy dog eyes? And Barbed Wire Man's like, why, yes, he did. That's when Clara's like, damn it. And then all of a sudden she believes him that he's from the future. So she pulls the emergency brake. The train screeches to a halt so that she can get off and go and run back to Emmett, to Doc, because she believes him now.
Of course, she gets to the blacksmith shop and they're not there. Because
she gets to the blacksmith shop, they're not there. So she gets on a horse and tries to catch the train again. Yeah, she sees the model and then sees sees the little toy car that they made that says Time Machine on it. And that's where that's where everything clicked together, and she 100% believes that he's a time traveler. So she puts two and two together that they're trying to get to the train and
racing back.
So she gets on a horse, starts racing back to the train. Meanwhile, Doc and Marty
the train
they're doing the classic Western train heist move of riding their horses up next to the train, grabbing on, climbing onto the train. Which then, as they're going over, when they get to the front of the train, before they go into the engine of it, Doc tells Marty to put his bandana up over his face, right? Have you ever taken a close look at that bandana that Doc's wearing?
No.
So, you remember in Back to the Future 2, when they're in the future?
Yes.
Doc is wearing a yellow shirt with trains all over it?
Yes.
With steam engine trains all over it? If you look closely at that bandana, it is a yellow bandana with little steam engine trains all over it, but it's all faded. So he took that shirt and turned it into a bandana. And it's also that shirt's foreshadowing this movie.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's his train shirt that he turned into a bandana.
And it's important that their identities are hidden, not because they're pretty sure they're planned, but it's important for their names to be kind of preserved.
Yeah.
And which we'll see very shortly.
So because Clint Eastwood would never be able to make a movie if back in the 1800s, if it was revealed that back in the 1800s he was a train robber, because then he would never have the long, successful career that he's had.
Isn't it crazy that he's still making movies today? Even a while back in 1990 when this movie was made, right? And here we are over 30 years later, when he's 90. And
he's still making movies.
So they disconnect the engine from all the other cars, so it's...
First they draw on, or Doc draws on the conductor, because Marty doesn't have his gun anymore because he gave it to Seamus after the duel.
That's right.
He gave it to Seamus, told him it was worth $12, never been used.
That,
and Seamus says, maybe I'll trade it for a new hat.
Yeah, we got about the last moment. It's a good last little moment.
It is.
Between
But
the two of them.
yeah, so back to the train. Doc draws, says reach. The conductor asks if this is a stick up, and Doc says no, it's a science experiment. So they get him to stop the train. They unhook the passenger cars, and then Doc and Marty take over the train and set it up right behind the DeLorean. And Doc has made special Presto logs that'll get the boiler nice and hot to be able to get the train up to 88 miles per hour. So Marty gets in the DeLorean, Doc gets in the train, and their plan is to get the train going up, throw in the Presto logs, and so as they got green, yellow, and red. The green one's going to burn first. Then the yellow one's going to burn hotter. Then the red one's going to burn the hottest. But they have to be careful because once the red one hits, then that's when the boiler explodes. So they have to be careful
really
about that.
At that point.
Yeah. So they got to hope that they hit 88 miles per hour before that red one ignites.
Because remember, they're going towards a cliff.
Yes, they're going toward
and if
Shawnash
it
Ravine.
Too late, then they won't get to 88 in time and just falls in the ravine.
Because the DeLorean can't fly anymore because Marty didn't think to go to 2015 and get the the hover conversion again, or at least to get it fixed.
So everything is seemingly set, and they're going.
Yeah, so the plan is for Doc to control the train until they get close enough to 88 that he's going to climb up the side of the engine and then climb onto the DeLorean and get inside it.
As he's starting to do that, Claire rides up.
Yep, Clara rides up and climbs up the back of, because it's the engine and it's the wood car behind it. Those are the only
they need the
bits because they need the wood to keep the fire
the wood's
burning.
Always, the wood's always there for the fire to get the steam going.
So Clara
and she
rides up.
Bold enough to get onto the train,
a
moving train from a horse.
Yes. But as soon as she grabs the ladder, the green Presto log goes off, and there's a burst of speed, and she starts waving like a flag on the back of the train.
Yeah, and she's trying to get Doc's attention, but obviously we got the train that's at this point going about 50 miles an hour.
Now, I think it's up around 35 or 40 at this point, but yeah.
Yeah, but on the outside of it, so you got all the wind rushing against you.
Yep.
So you're not going to really hear a lot of anything else.
No. So she's trying to yell for Doc, but he can't hear her. And so Doc is out there trying to climb up toward the DeLorean while Clara climbs up to the engine, blows the whistle to get Doc's attention. And he sees her back there, decides he's going to go back for her because he doesn't really have much of a choice now. He's got to take her with him. Otherwise, she's going to fall into the ravine and it's going to become Clayton Ravine again. And he can't let that happen to the woman that he loves. So he decides he's going to take Clara back to the future with him. And so he goes back to get her, but he can't quite make it in time. So he tells her to come to him. Meanwhile, while she's climbing up across there, the yellow Presto log ignites. Another burst of speed knocks Clara off balance and she falls back, but her dress gets caught on the side of the train. So she's just sort of hanging.
19th century dresses.
Yes. So she's sort of just hanging upside down off the side of the train. And Doc decides to go back to her, but he loses his footing and he's just hanging there trying to get back to her. And he can't make it in time. And Marty gets the brilliant idea to pass him the hoverboard.
We left out the point that Marty still has the hoverboard.
Yes, Marty still has the hoverboard. He had it in the DeLorean with him. And through all the commotion, it got knocked loose from where it was, and it sort of floated over by his foot, and he saw it, and that's when the light bulb hit that I'm going to pass Doc the hoverboard. So he lines it up, lets go of it, and it lines up perfectly. Doc's able to slide his foot into the little strap on the hoverboard
and grab Clara.
He goes and grabs Clara.
As it hits the red.
No, the red hitting. No, it was the red hitting that actually knocked everybody off balance. Then, yeah, because the boiler blew up.
That's right,
and it knocked Doc off. It knocked his footing out from under him, and so that's what it was. So it's a flaming train that's going way too fast. Yeah, because the boiler exploded. So once Doc is on the hoverboard, he lets go of the train, goes back, grabs Clara, and carries her off, and they just sort of go floating off along the train tracks. Just as
they might have been able to grab all of the DeLorean.
No, it was too far in front of them and going too fast. They wouldn't be able to make it up there.
Probably, yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, so just as the DeLorean is about to be crushed between the train and the dead end sign at the end of the tracks, it hits 88 miles per hour. The DeLorean travels through time. The train goes plummeting into the ravine.
And then we see
the DeLorean show up.
Re-enter in 1985.
Yep. DeLorean enters. 1985.
Eastwood Ravine.
Yep, goes right by the sign that says Eastwood Ravine because it was Clint Eastwood supposedly that fell over the ravine.
Because the idea is that he was trying to stop people from hijacking the train. Because, remember, they didn't show their faces to anyone on the train. And he had just been back in town, which makes you kind of think, no, okay, maybe the McFly family kept the Martin name in the family because they met another Marty or another Martin that they admired.
But, now that supposedly Clint Eastwood was the one to go over in the ravine, it was renamed to Eastwood Ravine.
But
and
the train tracks are still there.
And what we failed to mention in either of the other two episodes was Doc was bent on when they get back to 1985, he was going to
destroying the
time machine because it's been nothing but trouble.
Yeah, I thought about that earlier. I forgot to bring it up again.
But yeah.
And like you said, those train tracks are still there. The same train tracks in 1885 are there in 1955, which is part of the reason why they chose that track. That way they would know exactly where they would land. They don't want to land up inside of some building all of a sudden, right?
Nope. So he's still sort of just coasting down the train tracks and goes through the train crossing and the arms are coming down and
people are looking at him.
You're thinking maybe it's because he's going through there that the arms are coming down?
No, there's a train coming.
There's an actual train coming. So Marty dives out of the DeLorean. The last second, train rips through the car, just destroys it, sends parts flying everywhere.
And Marty, after kind of regaining his thoughts, because, it's scary, obviously. He's looking around, he's looking at the parts, he sees the license plate, he sees part of the license plate.
Yep. He sees
the shell, the flux capacitor.
It's all cracked and broken. And then he sees the picture of Doc and Marty at the clock, picks it up, and it's ripped in half. He's only got half the picture.
He's like,
and he's
Doc,
reminiscing.
The machine's destroyed.
Yep, just like you wanted. And he's sad that he'll never see Doc again because he has no way of going back to get him.
The time machine's now destroyed.
Yep.
But, then he remembers, oh, it's right,
so
Jennifer.
So he remembers Jennifer.
It's been about a week since he's seen Jennifer. Because it's been a week in 1885.
For Jennifer, it's only probably been a couple hours. But, yeah, so he goes back to Jennifer's house.
She's still on the swing, and the 1985 has been restored.
Yes,
we haven't seen that restored yet.
And there's no bars on her windows anymore because it's not alternate 1985. And so he wakes her up with a kiss, and then
they go back to his house.
Yes, they go back to his house. They get in his truck that he got at the end of the first movie that just appeared in his garage.
He sees his family again, by the way.
Yes,
his family's there.
Yeah, his family's there. They're all rushing off to work. Biff comes out. He was just putting the second coat of wax on Marty's truck. Comments how he likes his hat.
Yeah, because he's still dresses like...
Yeah, because he's still dressing his cowboy getup.
1880s Clint Eastwood.
Still wearing the poncho and the hat.
And they're on the way. They're driving.
Yep, they're driving, presumably to go back to...
Needles shows up.
Presumably to go back to the DeLorean, to the train tracks where the remains of the DeLorean are. But yeah, so Needles shows up. In his truck.
Last time, Flea, and if you're not aware, Flea is the basis for the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yep. Who we have mentioned him before on the podcast.
Please definitely listen. Yes, because he's one of the nihilists in the Big Lebowski.
Yep. And of course, he was in Back to the Future 2 also.
Here he is playing a teenager.
Yep. Yep.
And again, he's challenging Marty to a drag race. What do you got, chicken?
And Marty seems to have his same reaction to people calling him chicken. He agrees to the drag race. Yep. And as he's throwing
Jennifer's trying to tell him no.
Yep, Jennifer's trying to tell him no because she heard about it in the future when she was hiding in the closet. She heard about Marty getting hurt in a car crash because
she still has the facts.
Yes, she still has the facts that if you're fired. And so they're revving their engines, putting the trucks into gear. The light turns green. They both hit the gas. Needles goes forward. Turns out Marty put his truck in reverse. He backs up, sort of spins a little bit and stops. And just as Needles is passing a street,
the next intersection,
a Rolls Royce comes out, almost hits it. Needles swerves around the Rolls Royce, and Marty comments that if I had raced him, I would have slammed right into that Rolls Royce. Then Jennifer looks at the facts, and it disappears. The "you're fired" disappears.
They drive to the crash site. They're talking about it. They start hearing those bells again, the gate bells for a train. Right?
Mm-hmm, but there's no train coming.
There's no train coming. I'm wondering, it's been train appears.
an old
And
steam
it's
engine
Doc.
looking train with some futuristic stuff to it. It comes down along the tracks. And it's Doc and Clara. And their two sons, Jules and Vern.
Jules and Vern.
So,
One of the only two Verns I've ever met. I haven't met that Vern.
yeah, I don't know too many
Verns.
Verns. I mean, my dad is Vern, so he's the main Vern that I know. But yeah, I don't know too many other Verns.
Your dad's like the one Vern. Then there's like Vern and this Bird Lundquist.
Huh.
It's not a name you hear very often.
Well, there's Vern Troyer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, good. Yeah, mini-me. Yeah.
But yeah, so
but they built another time machine.
Yep. Doc built the time machine out of a train, and he gives Marty a present. Marty opens it. It's the picture from the clock of the two of them.
Yes.
Standing. So we didn't see them take a second picture, but maybe they did.
He's also in a time machine. He could have picked it up at some point. I don't know.
He could have, but he would have needed Marty to be in the picture with him.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Maybe he went back to right after the picture was taken and he got a copy made.
Maybe.
But anyway, so Marty's got the picture again, and Jennifer asks why the writing on the fax disappeared, and Doc reveals that because it hasn't happened yet. The future can always be changed.
Yep. Whatever you make it.
Yep. The future is what you make it, and make it a good one. Meanwhile, during this whole conversation, little Vern is standing there, and if you look at him, he's doing some very interesting gestures. During Doc's conversation with Marty and Jennifer, Vern is standing back there. He kind of looks over past the camera, waves his hand like he's telling somebody to come to him, and then he points at his crotch.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, he's just real quietly like, "Come here," and then points at his crotch.
Gotta pee.
Yeah, exactly. He's telling the people off camera that he's got to pee. And they left that in the movie.
The kid should have peed before the scene. He had one scene. He couldn't pee before it.
Yep. But yeah, so they, rather than reshooting the scene, they kept it in there. So yeah, next time you watch it, keep an eye out. During their conversations, just watch Vern. But,
and that's, as you said, that's basically where it ends.
Well,
whatever the future they make.
Yeah.
And the train goes off. And
the train flies away. It takes off and it flies just like the DeLorean
how the
did.
time circuits work.
No.
We know that he's able to make it a steam-powered thing, and, he's obviously figured out a way to make it fly.
Well, obviously, after he built it in 1885, he took it to the future and got a hover conversion.
Yes. He took it, that's probably, and
added the more futuristic pieces to it.
He's got to figure out some of the time circuits of how he was able to set it to 2015.
Well, I mean, it probably took him a few years to build it. I mean, he's got kids that are like 8 and 10 years old or so.
8 and 10, yeah, decent age.
Somewhere around that age. Maybe they're like 6 and 8. They're more than just a few years old. So it probably took him some time to make the time machine.
I still think it's a bad deal for Doc, though. I mean, I come back to that, though. Like, he could either stay in the 1980s, kind of be a cool scientist and hang around Marty, or he can marry Mary Steenburgen.
Yeah. Or both.
Yes. Anyway, it really is a great bow on all of it, though.
Yes.
I know we're joking around.
But it's a very nice, happy ending for everybody.
It's happy ending for all of them. No one dies. Everything's kind of reset back, and Jennifer and Marty are together, and their future's uncertain, and that's fine. You need to know what it is. That's as Doc says. So you got to make it your own and make it good. So it just wraps them nicely. Good fitting end to all three. Which wasn't even supposed to be a trilogy, but they built their own self-contained little arc, and they finished well.
They built one of the best trilogies of all time.
Yep, definitely.
It's right up there with Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Lord of the Rings and all those.
Yeah, all those.
It's an excellent, excellent trilogy.
Yeah, it's funny. Obviously, Michael J. Fox. He was able to kind of keep his name on Family Ties and Back to the Future movies, and he had other successes, obviously, with Spin City, and that's all he needed was those two things. And Christopher Lloyd obviously had a great career, and Leah Thompson was kind of a big start to her career. Obviously, the second two movies, her role's a lot smaller than the first one, but it was a good, helped establish her. And, even like Crispin Glover, he never had like a huge career, but
Was
definitely
Howard the
helped
Duck
him.
before or after the first one?
I think a year before.
Okay. That's what I was thinking too.
Which is interesting enough because Howard the Duck was directed by George Lucas.
Yeah.
Obviously, Lucas and Spielberg were like really close friends, and Spielberg was a producer on Back to the Future.
But of course, Leah Thompson was in Howard the Duck.
All the Right Moves also. So she definitely had a good career in the 80s. But
Red Dawn.
Yeah. So she was one of those youngish actresses or actors at that time period. So, yeah. And hey, Billy Zane.
Yep. Billy Zane in one of his early roles.
Or he was the massive asshole in Titanic.
And Phantom.
Yeah, no.
Before he was the Phantom.
Right. But yeah, it's just one of those great movies that, it's good for the entire family can watch it. And it's very endearing. Even the second and third ones where it's, a little bit more zany and, very stylized with the time settings.
Yeah, but it's a very, very good family movie that people of all ages can enjoy. The whole trilogy is.
Because, it's about, as you said, that the first one. What would it be like to see your father or parents in high school? Would you be friends?
Yeah.
It makes you think, okay, what if I had to see my own kids? They get older, right? That's a lot of questions that easily identify with. It just keeps it very simple. Even going back to the alternate timelines, it keeps the rules of the time travel simple enough. It's not complicated. And it keeps these very universal themes. And that's why people keep coming back to it. The timeless movies.
Yeah, so there it is. We've completed the Back to the Future trilogy. We got one more movie in this little time travel segment that we're going through right now before we move on to something else. So join us next time when we do Looper, the Bruce Willis, Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie that came out in...
Wayne Johnson directed.
Yes, it came out in 2012. It's a good movie that we will talk about next time. So if you'd like to follow us on social media... We are on Facebook and Instagram. It is Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. The and is spelled out, A-N-D, unlike the name of the podcast where it's an ampersand, but it's all spelled out, Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure, on both Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, or X, we are R&T Cinematic. And then also, if you're into Letterboxd, we've got a Letterboxd account too. That is... Cine Adventure, or Cine Adventure, however you want to pronounce it, but it's C-I-N-E Adventure. And if you want to send us an email, let us know what you think about the podcast. If you have suggestions of movies you might want us to do, something like that, then our email is Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure, all spelled out, @gmail.com. Go ahead and give us a like and a follow, and leave us some reviews. That's how we're going to move up in the standings on all these podcasting apps. So whatever your favorite app is, go ahead, leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. And again, if you have suggestions of movies that you think we maybe should do, then let us know. We want to do movies that everybody's going to enjoy. So, yeah, we will see you then.
Have a good night, everybody.